We are live. Billy, my friend, it's been a minute. We had some travel, we had some conflicts coming up, but we are back at it, man. Got a really cool topic today, how to learn from failure, how to learn from setbacks. Excited to dive into it. I see you're outside. For those of us, or those of you watching from the great state of Pennsylvania, man, we finally got some nice weather. But anyways, man, how's it going? How are things going today?
Good, man. I'm happy to be back. It's going to be in the 50s today. So I'm just trying to enjoy the sunlight, soaking up the vitamin D. Just ready for baseball season. Spring is right around the corner.
I know, man. And with that being said, this kind of segues into what we're talking about today. Baseball is such a game of failure, but we hope to bring some value today for parents and their son or daughters that are going to deal with failure this upcoming season. How you can communicate with those young athletes and how they deal with failure, and some of the lessons to be learned, some of the perspectives to be learned from failure itself. So to kick things off, man, let me know a little bit about your story. Like when you started to realize in your career, maybe your coaching career, like a big aha moment when you started to realize that failure is not a bad thing. Failure is not like a thing that we should be running away from.
That's a great question. I think it took me a long time as a player to realize that. And anymore, I don't like to look at it as failure. I like to call it more like a setback. This way, when we have a setback, it's something that's going to set us back a little bit, but then it's also setting us up for a new opportunity or for new growth or for new learning. So instead of failure, I like to call it a setback because there's not really any failures in life. There's only obstacles that we have to overcome or setbacks that, are going to actually make us stronger. For me as a player and a coach, just in the past few years, thinking about, how often you fail, how often you don't succeed in baseball, that's why it's such a struggle mentally, and that's totally fine. But to answer your question, I think just recently I've started to realize that, the more adversity that I'm facing, it's actually a good thing, meaning that I'm ready to grow and learn from it and actually level up through it.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, I'd like to share a story. This is something that stuck with me, and I've shared it with others, and it's really hit home for them. For those of you that are familiar with Tom Bilyeu is the creator of impact theory, where he's interviewed, Kobe Bryant when he was alive. He's interviewed entrepreneurs. He's interviewed a ton of highly successful individuals in all sorts of fields. Tom Bilyeu, he was speaking at this conference, and he was the keynote speaker. And the very beginning of his speech, he started talking about artificial intelligence, right? So, machine learning and you can even go into robots with artificial intelligence and things like that. And there's an interesting thing about artificial intelligence, right? Artificial intelligence has a task to do, and they're either going to succeed, or in this case, they don't call it failure, right? So artificial intelligence, let's say the task is to complete project A, right? If they don't complete project A, it's not considered failure. It's only considered feedback. So artificial intelligence has no emotions. Artificial intelligence has no way to get stuck, figuring out, why did I screw up? I feel bad for myself. I'm going to be sad and angry and depressed and frustrated. And all of these emotions that humans get. Artificial intelligence only gets feedback in a sense that it sees, okay, I did X, Y, and Z. I need to do A, B, and C. So it only sees it objectively. So that's a lesson to be learned that we can take from artificial intelligence. That when you screw something up, it's not failure, it's only feedback. It only gives you information of how to adjust, how to improve, how to tweak, how to, function differently moving forward.
Yes, that's a great point.
Of course, I didn't do it as much justice as Tom Bilyeu, but excellent lesson to be learned.
He's a gifted speaker, you know.
He certainly is.
He has a little more experience than us, but you know. But yeah, that's a great point. So results are, yeah, they're more feedback than anything. So that goes for, you know, positive and negative results. You know, you get a positive result, great. You know, how can I stay consistent and repeat that and get that positive result again? And then even how can I improve upon that? So your learning is never really done. You know, even if you succeed or have a good game or a good season, you know, the greats, all the greats and all the great athletes, you know, they're always striving to get better. You know, even LeBron can get better. Even, you know, Tiger Woods in his prime was trying to get better. So even if you do well, that's also feedback on how can I even improve on my successes. And then if I don't have success, you know, you can look at it as, like if you have a bad game, for example, in any sport, you might look at it, you know, was I in the right place mentally before the game? Was my focus there? Did I have a purpose, you know, for being there? Was I grateful to be playing the game? Or maybe, you know, if you were mentally there, maybe something physically was wrong, you know, with your technique or, you know, your mechanics or whatever. So yeah, I agree. It's all feedback, and that's a great way to look at it.
I love the concept of feedback for sure. Let's dive into a little bit of value for parents, because this is, you know, primarily the people that are on Facebook that are going to be watching this. Parents, you know, nobody wants to see their son or daughter mess up. Nobody wants to see their son or daughter fail, right? So understanding that no athlete is going out there to try to fail. I think that's a very simple thing to say, but it's often forgot. Nobody goes out there and intentionally tries to screw up. Nobody goes out there intentionally trying to fail, right?
Right. So as parents, you know, what can we, parents and coaches included, you know, what can we do to foster that growth through setbacks and through not succeeding? I think the main thing as a parent, you know, after the game, is just to say, you know, I'm glad I got to watch you play. You know, I love you no matter how you perform. You know, let's go home and eat dinner and, you know, move on with our lives. There's no reason to dwell on a bad game, or there's no reason to, you know, rehash. Why did you strike out in the third inning? Why did you swing at that pitch? You know, if the athlete knew that he was going to swing at a bad pitch, he wouldn't have done it. So there's no reason to ask something like that. You know, it's more just foster a place of love and growth, you know, through that setback. And then for coaches, same thing. You know, if you're having a post-game speech, you know, keep the post-game speeches to a minimum, please, because, you know, you ever see in the MLB they have a post-game speech in the dugout? Hell no. You know, after the
get
game,
out of there, man. They get out of there.
What they need to do, and what they need to do tomorrow, you know, is come back with the right mindset to win a ball game. But as a coach, you know, you can just say, I know you guys gave it your all. You know, we came up short, and that's totally fine. You know, we have another tournament next weekend. We have another game in 2 days or tomorrow. Let's get after it and, you know, come back with a fresh mindset tomorrow. So dwelling on your mistakes isn't really going to help that much, unless it's really like a technique based thing where you need to change your mechanics. But even then, you know, in the middle of the season, it's not the best to be working on like adjusting your technique, because your skills already got you to where you are, and trying to like tinker with those might not be the best idea in season.
Yeah, 100%, man. And how many different factors affect the mechanical side of things? But, you know, this translates to parents and for coaches. I mean, if you're a student of coaching, right? And I do think that there is a role in parenting that is coaching. It might not necessarily be the way that, you know, traditional coaching is seen, but you're still playing a role in coaching your son or daughter in terms of their sport. You might not be on the field with them, but there's still a carryover, right? And what you said about MLB players, there's so many examples of baseball coaches. I mean, Lou Piniella and all these legends that they wouldn't even talk to their players until the next day if it was a bad game, right? Not even a post-game speech. Like, just get out of here, reset, come back tomorrow, come back fresh tomorrow, and let's get this thing back on track, instead of, you know, let's just gouge open an open wound even more. You know what I mean? Like that's not going to be productive at all.
Exactly. And then going back to what Tevin said, about he said about you should be happy, if you make a mistake. I actually agree, because the only way that you can really grow is through making mistakes or not succeeding, or having setbacks. We don't really grow that much when we win, because we're just content and we're happy that we won. But we learn a lot more from failure or from not succeeding. So to his point, I think that's a great point. Instead of getting angry at your son or daughter or player, or upset with them, for not succeeding, instead remind them that, failure is an avenue for growth, and it's totally fine, because nobody succeeds all the time. And that's actually a good thing. Now you can try to, as long as you're learning from it and trying to get better, which we should be, trying to evolve every single day. And we evolve more through failure than when we succeed.
And it's very easy for us to talk about it, right? But it's a complete mindset shift where you actually have to practice embracing that failure. You have to actually work on the mental side to embrace the feedback that you're getting. You have to work on being happy when you screw up. It's not something that you just say, okay, I'm going to be happy when I screw up now. It's a constant evolution. It's a constant growing process that, it really needs to grow and to develop. And it's not just like a flick of a switch.
Right. So no one's happy when they fuck up, and that's just how it is. So we can look at it, when you're upset after the game, you had a bad game. That's fine. Sit with it for a little bit. I'm talking a few minutes max. And then, see how it makes you feel, experience your emotion, and then try to separate yourself from the emotion where, okay, I was really pissed off. I had a bad game. But now I can kind of look at it as, what can I learn from this game, now that I took away the emotional side. So emotions are great, and they're important arenas for growth, but we can't let our emotions override our logic behind like learning from our mistakes. So experience the emotion, totally fine. I'm pissed off. I had a bad game. All right, let it sit there for a little and then move it to the side. Don't let it eat away at you. Don't let it fester inside of you, and bring it back to the yard the next day. Leave it at the field. A cool exercise that we talked about before was it's called treeing it. You can use like a tree, a dugout wall, a fence. You take all you're pissed off. You take all your anger or your aggression or whatever. You take it out of you and you just put it in the tree. And now it's gone. It may sound stupid, but if you try it out, I promise you that it actually will make you feel better, and you can separate yourself from the anger that way.
No, that's a cool technique, man. Where did you pick that up?
Terry Orlick is a sports psychologist. I read it in his book. Really good. He writes some really good books on sports psychology and dealing with failure and growing as an athlete.
Yeah.
He got some amazing work.
Interesting. Treeing it for sure.
And then also as a parent, do you mind if I go on here?
Yeah,
dude, we haven't done this in so long, dude. I got so much to say. My mind's friggin' exploding. As parents, we teach our kids learn from us. But if we're telling our kids one thing and then doing something totally different, it's not really going to resonate with the kids, because, if we come home and had a bad day at work, and thank you, Cody. If we have a bad day at work, and we come home, we're all pissed off and we're like, we have a scowl on and we're mean to our kids and we're kicking the dog, this is going to show our kids that it's okay to be angry. It's okay to bring your work home, your bad game home. But as adults, we need to be the ones who can set a good example for our kids. We need to come home after a bad day and, kind of just relax and, try to remove ourselves from whatever experience that we had at work or with our family or whatever, and try to live in the moment and, be appreciative for that moment and be with your kid and be present with them. So our kids really learn from our actions more than our words is the point.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. Simply said, leading by example, but we develop those habits on an unconscious level just as much as a conscious level. And understanding that, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13, 14, all the way up, man, we're so impressionable. Our brain is like a sponge. Our habits are forming, in so many different ways So it's important to be aware of that as a parent, because a lot of parents are going to say, okay, yeah, your job is nothing like playing your sport, right? You playing your sport for fun, but understand that as a parent, work consumes a lot of your time and a lot of your mental energy. As a young athlete, your sport consumes a lot of your time and a lot of your mental energy, right? So there's a lot of comparisons there, and there's a lot of things that carry over back and forth between the two. So the way you carry yourself with your job as a parent, you're giving cues on an unconscious level and on a conscious level to, the way your son or daughter is going to behave in their sport, or in relation to their sport. And you talked about bringing, baggage home with you from work, and then how you behave, right? And it's that message that you're sending. It's okay to bring home that baggage from your sport too, but there's so many other things because they're so comparable.
I agree. And hopefully, like, we said, sports are supposed to be fun. It's a game. Hopefully your work can be fun too as an adult. Hopefully you don't go to work just to make money. Hopefully it's somewhat, enjoyable for you. But exactly. So our kids learn from us. If we're telling our kids to go outside, get exercise, do well in school, read a book, but we're sitting at home, on the couch, eating chips on our phone all night, what is our kids seeing? They're going to see that, oh, that's okay, because that's the way my mom or dad lives their life. And you're not going to be perfect, and that's totally fine, but you can try to set a good example, try to cultivate, a home where the kid can grow and, learn from you, and learn from your mistakes, and learn from your successes as well.
There's Tevin. I appreciate you jumping on here.
Tevin on here, bro. He's got some.
I know. Tevin he's extremely intelligent. Tevin, I'm sorry I didn't see you earlier today, man. Had some things to take care of, but I miss you, man. There's something I really want to touch on that's, probably going to piss some people off, but young athletes are being programmed from the school system in such a negative way that it carries over to the way they perceive things from sports. And I don't know your opinions on the school system, but I believe that, the traditional school system, the way it's set up for kids, is so incredibly messed up. It's screwing kids up so much. Think about a test in school. Kids are supposed to cram all of this information into their brain at a young age, 10, 11, 12 years old, right? And then they're supposed to take this test just so they can get this score. And pre-COVID, right, they would take their test in person. And this whole talk that we're having today is about feedback, is about failure, right? But what happens? They take that test, they give it to their teacher, they get it back a week or two later, and it's got red marks and it's all bloodied up, like, you did all of this wrong, right? And it creates so much tension for these kids to perform on these tests and not to actually understand the information, and not to actually take in the information, and not to actually use the information in not only school, but their entire life. So they're programmed to have stress. They're programmed to have all of this tension on a continuous basis, and just until we get to the next test. And then it carries over into their sport, right? They get all of this tension building up to this game. They have to perform. They have to pass the test of the game, right? And then it just carries over to the next game, and then the next game, and the next game. But tension is the enemy of learning. So there has to be a removal, and I'm not going to change the whole school system, but there has to be a removal from all of that tension that comes from the school system to pass these tests, and say, hey, athletics is not like just passing this one test. You can remove that tension. You can remove all of that BS, right? It's a completely different way to develop.
Yeah. I'm trying not to laugh because I couldn't agree with you more. As someone, went back to school to get my teaching certificate, with coaching. I loved working with the youth, teaching. So, and then when I went in as a sub, to substitute, see what it was like, actually in a classroom. I haven't been in a classroom for like 2 years. So that should tell you a little bit what I think about the school system. But not only with expectations on tests and grades and all that bullshit, but also kids are in school so sedentary, just like sitting there, and they're not able to like get up and move around. And
That's the worst way to learn.
it's teaching kids to like exactly that. We need to sit still and listen to the teacher and freaking have your like all tense and your shoulders up and shit. And yes, kids aren't really getting that much out of school because all they have to do is sit there. They have to impress the teacher and they have to impress their classmates. You know, in their head, they have to fit in. So that's also another issue. But I totally agree. Instead of having these tests and like pass or fail, you know, it should be what can we learn from this? You know, you took this test. All right. What did you do well on? What did you do poorly on? And then whatever you did poorly on, then we can put you in that group, you know, to specifically work on that area, that subject area. You know what I mean? Instead of like, oh, I got a D. Now I have to go show my mom. I'm scared to show my parents. Now I'm grounded, you know? So all these results come just from this stupid fucking test that doesn't mean anything, you know? And we're teaching kids the same I wish maybe we shouldn't have got on the subject because it does piss me off. But we're teaching kids to be the same too. Like you have to learn the same way. You have to learn the same thing in the same format and know the same shit that every other kid knows. And then when you get out in the real world, everyone's the same. No one has real life skills. Everyone can just read books and like regurgitate information, which doesn't relate to the real world whatsoever. So yeah, I totally agree. And that's one of the reasons why I don't teach anymore, really. When I was in there trying to get kids moving, like I was getting backlash from other teachers saying I was letting kids like get up and like play silent ball and like they were moving around too much. Like, oh, but I think that's how kids learn is actually through movement and through through relating to their environment. Yeah, so I totally agree, man. It's definitely a slippery slope. But let's not get into it too much here.
Watts' top 10 activity is a proper way to access how you're spending your time and emotion. List the top 10 things that are important to you, then list top 10 places you're spending your time. Do they correlate? That's an interesting thought. That's an interesting exercise to go through. I've never gone through it myself, so this is not like I asked Cody to put this on here, man. But definitely something to try out. And then you should put on, yes, the Michelle Thomas book. From Dr. Wyatt Woodsmall. That's an absolutely legendary book. Billy, I don't know if you're familiar with it. The Michelle Thomas method. He's passed away, but he was arguably the greatest educator of the 21st century. He would teach proficiently how to speak a language, a foreign language, in 3 days. He mastered the learning process. He mastered the teaching process. He mastered the feedback process, right? And I mean, you can look it up. There's a list of just celebrities and actors and actresses that may have had to learn a language for a movie like very quickly. And they would go to Michelle Thomas and it's like just unbelievable. So definitely check it out. That was also spur of the moment, going through it myself. Future of Learning. It talks a lot about the school system, how the school system really is bad with this whole topic that we're talking about of feedback and failure. So Cody, thanks for sharing that. Yes. The key to his process is limiting tension. Billy hit the nail on the head, 100%.
I got tension now talking about the school system. Thanks, Sam. But so how can we be proactive though, you know, is the more important factor here as parents and coaches. Exactly. So same thing with their grades, instead of seeing that bad grade as, oh, you're a failure, you failed. No, now we know what you need to work on, you know, and I'm here to help you and I can work on that with you, you know, so see your areas of, you know, the areas that you're not as strong in, learn from the results, feedback, and then work to improve. And the same with sports, same with school, you know, life is just all but really just a journey that we're just getting feedback. You know, no one really knows how to live this life properly or like what to say or what to do at all times. It's kind of just learning from experience and, you know, taking the good with the bad and just enjoying enjoying the dance of life. You know, how I try to look at it through my failures, which I fail a lot, you know, and
100%.
whatever.
You and me both, my friend.
It's a good thing. It's how we learn.
Of course. So anyways, man, we're coming up on the hour. What are the any lasting notes that you want to leave with parents here today?
Maybe what I just what I said to start. Instead of calling it failure or thinking about it as failure, think of it as a setback, because it might set us back, you know, one step, but then it's going to set us up to take at least 2 steps forward. So then we're always progressing.
Yeah, great insight for sure, man. But anyways, got to get Ship on here. Great topic and great info. Appreciate you, Ship.
Shipley. It's my boy right there. He wanted to come to our mental training seminar.
Excellent.
But I thought it was canceled.
Yeah.
Since we didn't get enough participants. But yeah, he was going to be there.
Anyways.
Which do we want to talk about our team training sessions?
Yes.
Yeah, so we just have we have availability for team training sessions with Sam and I to talk about the mental side of the game. We can come to your facility or your practice or your field or whatever and just hold like, you know, maybe a 45-minute to an hour session on, you know, how can we prepare for performance? How can we prepare for to deal with our setbacks, and basically all the information that we cover on these talks.
Yeah, it's a much needed area of discussion. Coaches oftentimes have the best intent, but we can definitely bring different perspectives than just, you know, your average coach. Billy works with athletes individually. I work with athletes individually. So we're here to serve. We're here to help. And that's the whole point of it. So thanks for sharing that. And we look forward to working with you guys.
Yeah. So contact Samurai if you're interested in having us come out and, you know, talk to your players and see what it's all about. Because they only have one head coach, you know, dealing with 15 kids. You know, that's a tough task. So exactly, to bring an outside perspective might be helpful.
Absolutely. All right, Bill. We'll see you, my friend.
All right, big dog.
Take
Have
care,
a good
man.
day.